So we've learned about how to sequence animations, how to run some code as soon as an animation is done, and then how to add on additional code to run another animation or to even remove the animation so we can run that animation again when a button is clicked. We're going to come back to our demo project and we're actually going to learn about a different way to be able to sequence our animations. And it's a little bit less code. It might be a little bit more complicated to understand, but it is a little bit less code. So it could actually just make things a little bit easier if you wanted to. So in this demo, we're going to come in and remove the toggle class. First of all, we added a toggle class in our last demo of the actual demo project. So we're going to remove that. We're going to update the documentation code because the code that we're going to be using is a little bit different than what we had copied and pasted before. And then we're going to sequence the animations and have these animations happen one after the other using this new updated code. First of all, let's come into our code. Let's remove where it says toggle class. So I'm going to come in here and remove all of those. And let's not worry about the phone for now. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete the phone one. So I'm going to go into Animate CSS's documentation, and I'm going to grab the new updated code that we need. So let's go into our browser, and I'm going to come in and instead of the one that I had copied before, I'm going to come down here to the next one. It says right here, so you can also extend jQuery to add a function that does it all for you. I'm going to copy all of that, and it is more complicated code. But once we start to actually animate in some stuff and to sequence some stuff, it actually becomes a little bit easier. So I don't even have to know what this does exactly. So I'm going to copy that. Let's go into our code. And we're going to paste this above the page loaded function. So there we go. So that's just the code that needs to happen, that needs to be there, that's going to listen for it. And now we're going to come into our function. After we've removed all of our toggle classes, we're going to come in here and we're going to, on the button click, we're going to say, use our jQuery selector to say .section1. Now you'll notice sometimes I use double quotes, sometimes I use single quotes. They're really, some people like to have all double quotes or all single quotes. I really kind of go back and forth. It doesn't affect the code too much. But here, instead of adding class, what I can do with this function, that code above, instead of adding that class and then removing the class or toggling the class, what I can do is just say, okay, .animate CSS, which is actually two lowercase s's there, which is the function right here, animate CSS. We're going to call that function, and then I'm going to pass in a parameter. So I'm going to say the first parameter is going to be bounce. And that's all I'm going to do for now. So really, I've simplified the code. Instead of adding on the class of animated and bounce, I just need to say, okay, go into this animate CSS function, pass in the parameter of bounce, and there we go. So let's save this and preview it. Let's go back into our browser. And here's my sample course up here. I'm going to go ahead and come down here and click on where it says Step 1 Ingredients. Oh, I forgot to come in here and remove these. Let's go remove these animations first of all. That might be throwing it off. So I came into my index.html and I'm going to remove some of these animations in the different sections here. Now I'm still talking to section 1, so let's go ahead and come back into our browser, hit refresh. Now if I click on it, you'll notice that it bounces. But the nice thing is I didn't have to toggle the class at all. If I keep clicking on it, it'll keep bouncing it because that function that we copied and pasted above will take care of that for us. You'll notice that as soon as the animation completes, so the animation will run, but as soon as it completes, it's now removed that animated and it removed the bounce as well. But that's not all you can do. You can actually come into the interaction.js and you can add after the bounce, you can actually add a function. So I can come in here and say comma function and then open close curly brackets. We're going to run a function after the animation is done. So inside of the curly brackets, I'm going to say hello. Let's go ahead and save that and go back into our browser here. I'm going to close out my inspector, go ahead and hit refresh, and then click on this. You'll notice that it bounces, but then it also runs the code. So I didn't need to add anything like an additional line of code that says on this animation ends, then run this function. It's all contained in that one line of code. So if I then wanted to run another animation, so let's go ahead and just say $. Let's then run section 2 dot animate CSS. Then let's pass in, let's just do bounce for now as well. And there we go. So after this is done, it's going to run this function, which is basically then going to bounce in the other section. So let's go ahead and save that, go into our browser, hit refresh. Now if I click on the first one, it's going to bounce, and then it's going to bounce the second one. Well, what happens if I want to bounce the third one? Well, we just add another function to section 2. So let's go into the code, and you can see right here, after that bounce, I just type in the same thing I did before. So function, open close curly bracket right before the last parenthesis, and then I can come in and do section 2. So I'm kind of nesting it a little bit. So I'm saying section 1 is the parents, then section 2, then section 3, then section 4. And so it's just a little bit easier of a way to be able to animate and sequence animations. And you can see that it was all done within this one function. I didn't need to have functions everywhere else. It basically just handled it right here. So in summary, what we've done in this section is we've set up animation end functions that will run code as soon as an animation is complete. We then fired the code after the animation completes, and then we started to sequence animations. Okay, once this animation is complete, then go in and sequence or fire this other animation. But then we also used the documentation to actually make it more simple to code the sequence. And so we grabbed the other code that then allows us to simplify how we add on animations without having to do add class or remove class or toggle class or anything like that. So that is a couple different ways that you can fire code after an animation completes. In the next section, we're going to be talking about how you can actually go in and build your own animations. You can take what Animate CSS has already done, and you can go in and build upon it or even create your own.